Benjamin Graham once described an imaginary man who, once you truly understand him, will change the way you think about money for the rest of your life. This man shows up at your door every single morning without fail, and he makes you an offer. Some mornings he arrives wildly optimistic, almost euphoric, and offers you a small fortune for something you own. Other mornings he arrives gripped by despair, convinced the world is ending, and begs you to take that very same thing off his hands for almost nothing. Most people let this man run their entire financial lives. They follow his moods, they obey his panic, they chase his euphoria, and in doing so, they quietly hand him their wealth, year after year after year. Graham gave this man a name. He called him Mr. Market. And understanding who he really is and learning to control your reaction to him may be the single most valuable lesson you will ever learn about money. Here is the truth that most people never come to terms with. The greatest threat to your financial future is not a recession, it is not a market crash, it is not inflation or taxes or even a bad investment. The greatest threat to your money is the person staring back at you in the mirror. Graham understood this more deeply than almost anyone who ever studied markets, and he understood it the hard way. He built a fortune, then watched it collapse in the crash of 1929, not only because prices fell, but because fear and forced selling did the rest. He spent the years that followed rebuilding, and in the process, he developed a way of thinking about market emotion that would protect his students for generations. Mr. Market was the heart of it. So today, I am going to walk you through exactly who Mr. Market is, why your own brain is wired to lose to him, and how the most disciplined investors in history turned his madness into their advantage. Let me describe Mr. Market the way Graham intended. Imagine you own a small share in a solid private business, and you have a business partner named Mr. Market. He is an obliging fellow in the sense that he never fails to show up. Every single day, he tells you what he thinks your share is worth, and he offers either to buy your stake at that price or to sell you more of his at the very same price. The trouble is that Mr. Market is deeply emotional, and his emotions swing without warning. On the days he feels good about the world, he is filled with optimism and quotes you a very high price because all he can see is the years of prosperity ahead. On the days something frightens him, he is filled with dread and quotes you a very low price because all he can see is trouble and ruin stretching to the horizon. Here is the most important part. Mr. Market does not mind being ignored. If you have no interest in his offer today, he will simply come back tomorrow with a brand new one. His quotes are there for your convenience, never for your instruction. And the entire difference between the investor who builds wealth and the investor who destroys it comes down to one thing. Whether you treat Mr. Market as your servant or you allow him to become your master. This is the trap that swallows almost everyone. The average person does not use Mr. Market. They are used by him. When he is euphoric and prices are high, they feel his excitement and they buy because everyone around them is buying and the optimism is contagious. When he is despairing and prices are low, they feel his terror and they sell because the fear in the air is overwhelming and they simply want the pain to stop. Do you see what this means? It means most people are doing the exact opposite of what builds wealth. They buy high because greed feels like confidence, and they sell low because fear feels like wisdom. They are quite literally buying expensive and selling cheap over and over across an entire lifetime, and then they wonder why the market never seemed to work for them the way it worked for everyone else. To understand why this happens, you have to understand something uncomfortable about your own mind. Your brain was not built for investing. It was built for survival on an ancient savanna, where the people who panicked at the first sign of danger lived to pass on their genes, and the people who stayed calm sometimes got eaten. For tens of thousands of years, reacting instantly to fear was the single most important skill a human could possess. That wiring is still inside you. And when you watch the value of your investments fall, that same primitive alarm system fires, flooding your body with the urge to flee, to act, to make the threat stop immediately. The problem is that in the world of investing, that instinct is precisely backward. The thing that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah is the very thing that destroys investors in the market. Researchers who study human decision-making have documented this again and again. The pain of losing money is is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. This is called loss aversion, and it means that a decline in your portfolio does not feel like a mild setback. It feels like a genuine threat to your survival. And under that kind of perceived threat, the rational long-term part of your brain goes quiet, and the ancient panic part takes the wheel. Graham saw this clearly, and he gave us another way to think about it that cuts straight to the heart of the matter. He said that in the short run, the market is a voting machine, but in the long run, it is a weighing machine. Sit with that for a moment, because it explains everything. In the short run, prices are set by emotion, by popularity, by the daily mood of millions of frightened and greedy people casting their votes through buying and selling. A vote is not a measurement of worth. It is an expression of feeling, and feelings change by the hour. But in the long run, something entirely different happens. Over years, the market stops voting and starts weighing. It begins to measure what a business is actually worth based on the real profits it generates and the real value it creates. The daily noise fades, and the underlying substance is what remains. Mr. Market does the voting, time does the weighing, and the investor who confuses the two, who mistakes today's emotional vote for a permanent measurement of worth, is the investor who gets destroyed. This brings us to the single most important distinction in all of investing, the one that Graham built his entire philosophy upon. Price and value are not the same thing. Mr. Market quotes you a price. He does this every day, loudly, with great confidence and conviction. But the price he quotes has almost nothing to do with what the underlying business is actually worth on any given day. A genuinely good business does not become worth 30% less because Mr. Market woke up frightened this morning. The factories still operate, the products are still sold, the customers still return. Nothing real has changed except the number Mr. Market shouted at you. When you understand this, a market crash stops looking like a catastrophe and starts looking like what it truly is. It is Mr. Market, in a fit of despair, offering to sell you excellent things at a discount. The price collapsed. The value did not. And the gap between those two, the distance between what something costs and what it is genuinely worth, is the exact place where fortunes are made. Now let me make this concrete, because Graham believed that principles without numbers are merely decorations. Consider what actually happens to the investor who lets Mr. Market control them during a crash. The market falls 30%. The financial news declares disaster. The panic becomes unbearable, and the investor sells everything to make the fear stop. They feel a momentary relief, but here is what the data shows about that decision. The best days in the market, the days of the sharpest recovery, tend to arrive in the immediate aftermath of the worst days, often within just a week or two of the bottom. Studies of long stretches of market history have found that an investor who stayed fully invested earned dramatically more than one who tried to dodge the downturns. If you miss just the 10 best days in the market across several decades, your total returns can be cut roughly in half. And the cruel irony is this: the people most likely to miss those 10 best days are precisely the people who panicked and sold during the worst ones. They fled the building right before the fire was put out, and they were still standing outside in the cold when everyone else walked back in to find the rooms warmer than ever. By obeying Mr. Market's fear, they did not avoid the loss. They locked it in permanently and then missed the recovery that would have erased it. So how does the intelligent investor actually use Mr. Market instead of being used by him? It begins with a complete reversal of your emotional instincts. When Mr. Market is euphoric and everyone is greedy and prices are soaring beyond all reason, that is not the time to feel excited. That is the time to feel cautious. And when Mr. Market is in despair and everyone is fearful and prices have collapsed, that is not the time to panic. That is the time to pay attention, because that is when he is handing you his best offers. Graham's most famous student distilled this into a single sentence that has echoed through the decades. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. That is not a clever slogan. It is the entire Mr. Market principle compressed into a rule you can actually live by. It means deliberately, consciously training yourself to do the opposite of what the crowd's emotion demands. Because the crowd's emotion is Mr. Market's emotion, and Mr. Market's emotion is almost always wrong at the extremes. But here is what makes this so genuinely difficult and why so few people ever manage it. Mr. Market is not really an old man who knocks on your door. Mr. Market lives inside your own head. He is the voice that whispers you should sell when the screen is bleeding red. He is the excitement you feel when a stock has tripled and everyone is talking about it and you are terrified of missing out. The external market is simply a mirror that reflects your own internal Mr. Market back at you, amplified by the panic and greed of millions of other people all feeling the exact same thing at the exact same moment. This is why Graham said the investor's chief problem, and even his worst enemy, is likely to be himself. You cannot lock Mr. Market out of your house because he is already inside it. What you can do is learn to recognize his voice when he speaks and to refuse to act on his moods. The discipline of investing is not really a financial discipline at all. It is an emotional one. It is the ability to feel the fear and not sell, to feel the greed and not chase, to sit quietly while every instinct in your ancient brain is screaming at you to do something, anything, to make the discomfort stop. Graham offered a powerful tool for building this discipline, and it flows directly from the Mr. Market allegory. He taught that you should make your investment decisions based on the business behind the stock, not on the price Mr. Market happens to be quoting. Before you ever buy something, you decide what it is genuinely worth based on the real value it produces. Then, and only then, you look at the price. If Mr. Market is offering it well below that value, you have found an opportunity. If he is demanding far more than it is worth, you simply wait because he will be back tomorrow and the day after, and eventually his mood will swing again. When you anchor your decisions to value rather than to price, something remarkable happens to your emotions. A falling price no longer triggers panic because you know what the thing is worth, and a lower price simply means a better bargain. You have given yourself a fixed point to stand on while the storm of Mr. Market's emotions rages around you. This is what Graham called the margin of safety, and it is not only a financial cushion, it is a psychological one. It is the thing that lets you stay calm when everyone else is losing their minds. Let me show you how this played out in Graham's own life, because he did not learn these lessons from a textbook. He learned them from devastation. When the crash of 1929 arrived and the market lost the overwhelming majority of its value over the following years, Graham watched fortunes evaporate, including a great deal of his own. He saw brilliant, sophisticated people wiped out, not merely because prices fell, but because they had borrowed heavily, because they panicked, because they had no fixed sense of value to anchor them when Mr. Market descended into his deepest despair. That experience did not break Graham, it refined him. He emerged with an unshakable conviction that the investor's emotions, not the market's movements, were the true source of ruin. And he spent the rest of his life teaching people to build a fortress around their own decision making so that when Mr. Market arrived screaming about the end of the world, they could look at him calmly, decline his terrified offer, and simply wait for him to come to his senses. The investors who learned that lesson did not just survive the storms that followed. They used those storms to grow wealthy, buying excellent businesses from a panicked Mr. Market at the precise moments when everyone else was selling them in a frenzy. Now, I want to give you something practical, because understanding Mr. Market intellectually is not the same as being able to resist him when your money is on the line and your heart is pounding. And the first practical step is to decide your strategy in advance, in a moment of calm, long before the storm arrives. The reason for this is simple. You cannot make a rational decision in the middle of a panic, because in the middle of a panic, the rational part of your brain has gone offline. So you make the decision now while you are thinking clearly, and you commit to it. You decide that you will keep investing steadily regardless of what Mr. Market is doing. You decide in advance that a market crash is not a signal to flee, but a signal to keep going or even to buy more. You write it down if you must, because when the fear comes, and it will come, you do not want to be making a decision. You want to be following one you already made. The second practical step is to stop watching Mr. Market so closely. Graham understood that the more often you check the price, the more often Mr. Market gets to shout his emotions at you, and the more chances you give your ancient brain to panic. The investor who checks their portfolio every hour is exposing themselves to Mr. Market's mood swings hundreds of times a week. And each exposure is a fresh temptation to act on emotion. The investor who checks rarely, who lets time do its quiet work of weighing rather than voting, is far less likely to be infected by the daily madness. There is a reason Graham's greatest student has said that his favorite holding period is forever. When your time horizon is long enough, the daily noise of Mr. Market becomes almost completely irrelevant. You stop hearing his screaming, and you start hearing the slow, steady hum of value compounding underneath. The third practical step is to reframe what a falling market actually means to you. If you are a net buyer of investments, if you still have years or decades of saving and investing ahead of you, then a falling market is not bad news, it is good news. It means the things you were going to buy anyway have just gone on sale. Graham pointed out the strange psychology of this. When almost anything else in life goes on sale, people are delighted. When their groceries are cheaper, they are pleased. When their favorite goods are discounted, they buy more. But when the stock market goes on sale, the very same people panic and run for the exits. It is one of the few markets in the world where falling prices terrify the customers instead of attracting them. The intelligent investor flips this around entirely. They learn to greet a market crash the way a careful shopper greets a clearance sale, with quiet interest rather than dread, because Mr. Market in despair is Mr. Market at his most generous. So let me bring all of this together. Mr. Market is the imaginary partner who shows up every day with an emotional offer, sometimes euphoric, sometimes despairing, and almost always wrong at the extremes. He is not there to guide you, he is there to serve you, to offer you opportunities, which you are free to accept or ignore as you please. The fatal mistake, the one that quietly drains the wealth of millions, is to mistake his daily emotional vote for a permanent measurement of value and to let his moods become your moods. Your brain, wired by ancient survival instincts and ruled by a fear of loss that runs twice as deep as any joy of gain, will constantly tempt you to do exactly the wrong thing, to buy in greed and sell in fear. And the entire discipline of intelligent investing comes down to mastering that internal Mr. Market, anchoring yourself to value instead of price, deciding your strategy in moments of calm, ignoring the daily noise, and learning to see a crash not as a disaster but as a discount. Graham gave us this allegory not because it was clever, but because it was true and because it works. The investors who have built lasting wealth across the last century were almost never the smartest people. They were the most emotionally disciplined. They were the ones who learned to let Mr. Market scream and rage and weep at their door, and to simply smile, decline his offer, and wait for time to do its weighing. You now understand who he is. You understand why your own mind is wired to lose to him, and you understand exactly how the disciplined few have turned his madness into their fortune. The only question that remains is the one that has always separated the investors who win from the ones who lose. When Mr. Market next arrives at your door, trembling with fear and begging you to sell, or flushed with greed and tempting you to chase, will you obey him the way most people always have? Or will you remember who he really is and who is truly meant to be in control? The choice, as it always has been, is entirely yours.